So, welcome back to Consistently Candid. This time I'm here with Francis Lorenz, who is a member of the events team at CEA, Centre for Effective Altruism, and fellow online AI safety poster, and also the author of maybe my favorite tweet actually of all time, which is your pinned tweet, which I'm actually like obsessed with.
Thank you so much. That actually means the world.
Love it. I think it's very funny. I will link it below and people can go and read it. So we were just going to have a bit of a chat about what it's like to be in the kind of like AI safety online space and our respective journeys, finding out about this stuff and navigating the online conversation, I guess. So I guess we could start with, you've been around a little bit longer than me. I've only really been here since 2023, and you were saying that you've been kind of floating around this community since 2019. How did that happen? How did you discover this stuff? And what pulled you in? What was that like for you?
I found out about EA back in 2019. Basically, my partner started reading Doing Good Better because her brother recommended it. And then she was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And then I read it and I did find the ideas kind of weird at first or a bit aversive. I was like, how can you say some suffering is, worse than other suffering, this kind of thing? But then the more I read, the more convinced I was. And then honestly, I don't know exactly what it was. I think I just was at a point in my life where I didn't have a clear vision for the future. I was pretty open to ideas. And then I just started getting really excited by that book. And I was like, all right, I'm in. I just kind of committed. And then initially, so I was studying, my undergrad, I was concentrating on stats at that point. So I did kind of start getting into AI safety. And I did do a bit of AI stuff, like for a third-year project. And my thesis was actually like trying to basically train an LLM to classify images to classify written statements as like moral or immoral according to common sense ethics. There was like this cool data set that had, these like sort of moral statements labeled by like human participants. So I kind of looked into AI safety a little bit and then did a little bit of AI safety community building after I graduated. And was like posting on Twitter throughout this whole time. But did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess when you read Doing Good Better, what was it about those ideas that you found like particularly compelling? And I guess also like relatedly, when you said you found some of it aversive, like what parts did you find aversive, and then how did you like change your mind about that?
Oh, yeah, cool. I think so. The initial just premise in general, the idea of measuring suffering, trying to compare, trying to direct resources. I've written about this before, but I got this kind of like instinctive, icky feeling where I was just, I don't know, like, why would I put a number on what it's like to live a year with blindness versus what it's like to live a year with HIV? I just, something about this concept feels kind of strange. But then I guess the point of the book is sort of highlighting this harsh reality that we have limited resources. And I think by the end of the book, I was just kind of, oh, this is actually literally so profound. Like it was just so cool to be introduced to the idea that like helping other people is so important that we have to approach it academically. And that's not coldness. That's actually us recognizing the gravity of like how deeply important it is to help as many people as possible. So kind of really, I just really liked that. I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, cool. I was like recently at a late night cafe in London, and I was just sitting there and I overheard these two girls behind me, like totally by coincidence, having a conversation about effective altruism and talking about this. It was really weird. Talking about this exact thing of trying to quantify suffering, and they were talking about it in a very critical way. Like they're talking about this and they were like, have you heard of this movement that is trying to like they said that they used the word quantify suffering as if that was like obviously such a morally transgressive thing to be doing, right? Like I don't know if I find that super icky, which I can kind of understand on like a gut level, but I find that really bizarre. I don't know, doctors use pain scales and then, administer medication appropriately according to those or whatever. Like quantifying suffering is not like a thing that we would think is perfectly normal and acceptable in a bunch of other contexts. And then I ended up having a small argument with them, not like not like an actual. I just turned around and I was like, because like at the time I was doing the Pivotal Fellowship, which is like an AI safety thing, and I've been working out of the kind of EA office like down the road from where I was in this cafe. And I was like, this is such a weird coincidence. So I turned around and I was like, hey, like I'm doing this, like I'm working on this stuff. I actually think that you guys are kind of misguided on this. Here are some reasons. And then I think they thought I was kind of annoying. I could tell they were trying to be nice, but eventually they were like, okay, well, we're gonna go now. And I was like, okay, you don't like me. I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, anyway, just maybe think about it, like just some ideas, but you don't have to listen to me. Who am I? But yeah, it's funny. I think like I have, I don't know if you have, but like certainly I've encountered a lot of pushback to this stuff from people that I know personally. And from, yeah, I don't know. I think it's oddly controversial to a degree that I don't really understand. But yeah, I don't know if you have thoughts on why people find this so aversive.
Oh, well, first, I like deeply respect your hustle. That's actually genuinely so impressive that you just went for it. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think, yeah, funnily enough, it like makes both perfect sense to me that some people just don't have this intuition at all, and thus they don't really get it. And then it also makes sense to me that some people do. I think I do just empathize with the flinch response naturally. Although I don't know that I have the best perspective on where it comes from, but I have to guess it's if we assume it's like a kind of flinch response that's coming from like a charitable place. So it's not like there is something like maybe some people just hate things and like they like to criticize things and whatever. But if we put like that kind of person aside, I think there could be something of like, I've written this in a post before, so I'm kind of just repeating myself here, but I think people are just protective of their pain. And it's like, I think a lot of people have just experienced other people kind of trying to write over their reality and telling them like, you think this is so hurtful, you think this is so bad, but it's not. And I think like the type of person who has seen this kind of dynamic play out or felt the pain of that, I think they just hear, oh, quantifying suffering, comparing suffering, and they're just like, ugh, who are you to do that? Yeah, so I do think for some people it comes from a very genuine sort of protective place. But then I think you're absolutely right that you kind of just cut through that a bit when you're like, oh, but we like do this all the time. Doctors do this. They ask you to rate your pain. And I think that can kind of just really help reframe it all of a sudden. Oh, it's not like a personal thing. This is like a tool that we're trying to use. No one's trying to tell me specifically what I'm meant to feel. This is just, the doctor doesn't know you, that they're just asking you for this scale because they kind of need to figure out what to do next. Yeah. I would love to hear, can you tell me how you got into the world of AI safety?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I have known about EA for a long time. Somewhere around like 20, how old was I? Maybe like 15 or something. I was really into atheism.
Okay.
I don't know why. I feel like maybe this is a pipeline that's like kind of common. I'm actually not sure. But I was having what in retrospect I would say was like quite an annoying and slightly obnoxious, edgy atheist phase. I was really into Sam Harris. And he must have had Will McCaskill or something on his podcast like around that time. So then I knew what it was, and it was like on the back burner in my mind, but I wasn't like involved, didn't really think about it. And then in 2023, I was working for a like postgraduate recruitment company. So we would write content for like people who are interested in doing a master's or a PhD. And the kind of content that I was writing, I just noticed was kind of like prime real estate for language models. And and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but it's just kind of, like the kind of thing that I realized would be pretty easy to automate with the kinds of tools that were like coming out. And I also noticed that a lot of our competitors were already doing this. And I don't know, I was like, this is kind of freaky. I feel like I should learn more about AI and the future of it, more from like an automation perspective. I was like worried about my job getting displaced, or, you know, worrying that I should have acquired some other skills and all of this. So I was like, well, I'm just going to look into it. I'm just going to have a little like innocent Google to see what experts are saying about the future of AI. And it just so happened that Jeffrey Hinton was in the news because he just stepped down from Google, and he was doing his little media tour talking about how AI was totally going to kill everyone. So I saw this in the news and I was like, oh, yikes, that's bad. But I kind of thought that if this was like a real concern, like I would already know about it. I was like, surely, like, if people, you know, credibly believe that AI is going to blow up the whole world in a single digit number of years, I would know, right? Like, people would be talking about this. So I thought that there was probably like some kind of reassuring expert consensus out there somewhere, and that someone like Hinton was probably, you know, on the more alarmist side of this spectrum. You know, like usually when you look into this kind of thing, there's some consensus that everyone's reached that things are kind of probably fine, and then there are a few detractors who are off on the doomy end being like, everything's totally not fine. But, you know, usually people are somewhere in the middle. So I started looking for this consensus, and like the more I dug, the more I just couldn't find it. And the more I went down this rabbit hole, the more I kept finding sort of doomier and doomier people. And at one point I was like, you know, is this a cult? I don't know. I feel like maybe people else was like on less wrong, and I was like, is it? Is it?
No, totally.
Right. I was like, this is a little bit of an odd subculture. I kind of liked it. I sort of vibed with it, but I was like, it is kind of strange, right? But then I realized that it wasn't like you could kind of pinpoint a single source where all of these ideas had come from. Like, people were coming in from all these kind of like separate academic and professional backgrounds and converging on this opinion that we should be super worried about AI. So I was like, oh, damn it, it's not a cult. It's like a real
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
And so I noticed that like a bunch of this conversation was playing out on Twitter. So I think I was sort of like a reply guy originally, and I was kind of like chiming in occasionally. And I wrote a blog post about this actually, but I had this sense that there were these people, like in this blog post I called them like the people that know things, like the kind of people who were qualified to speak on this. And most of them in my mind were like Twitter avatars or like, you know, EA forum usernames. It was just like this chorus of people that like up until this point I'd been interfacing with without speaking. And then I started talking on Twitter, and these people just started like talking back to me. And I was like, oh my God, it's so weird. People are talking to me. This is crazy. And I had one thread that got quite a bit of attention where I was basically just kind of complaining about how this was a very confusing experience for me, and everybody was saying different things, and I couldn't figure out if we were going to die in like 2027 or 2040 or never, and it was just like very overwhelming. And people, I think, resonated with that. Like, I think there's like more people than you'd think who are having this experience where they're finding the arguments a little bit difficult to parse, and they are confused by the differences of opinion that people seem to have, and they find that very emotionally destabilizing. So I don't know, people liked that. Yeah, and then since then I've done all kinds of stuff. I started this podcast, I pivoted my whole career into AI safety. I've been like writing about it a bunch. I've just wrapped up a fellowship where I did some like research into AI policy, and I'm about to go start working at the AI Security Institute now, hopefully soon, doing comms for them. So yeah, sorry, that was a really long ramble.
No, that was so interesting. And like, congrats on the position. And it's just so cool to see how you so sincerely just buckled down on your views. It's like, genuinely, it's like a very beautiful arc. Like, you found this thing, you explored it very earnestly, you formed an opinion to the best that you could, and you were like, okay, I'm going to try to take action on this, which is like a very difficult thing to do. Pivoting is just, I don't know. For me, it's like a very hard thing. I'm not that naturally like ambitious. Like, I like to just chill.
I mean, I would like not categorize myself as ambitious at all. I think it more just got to the point where I was like thinking about this so much. It was like an obsession of mine, and like it would have felt more effortful not to pivot. Like, I think doing an unrelated job when literally all I cared about was like trying to positively impact AI just felt super demoralizing. Not that it was a nice job and I liked it, and my colleagues were lovely and I really enjoyed it before I got into the AI stuff, but it just felt like swimming against the tide or something, because I was like, oh my God, like this is just so much less important to me than this other stuff. And I think it would have just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like compelled because I was just like thinking about it so much. But I think it's like awoken a bit of more of an ambition in me than I used to have, though. I used to be very much not career driven and very like almost opinionated about finding value in things other than career. I don't really care about career that much. I care about friendship, and I don't even know, just all these other things. And I think that people are too focused on career and they care about it too much. And I've sort of changed my mind on that since I found something that I actually care about. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, do you have a high level AI safety worldview? Like, how do you feel about it, and how pessimistic or optimistic would you say that you are about it?
Yeah, this is so I basically don't have a worldview that is super coherent and that I can explain. I have read the basic arguments for AI safety, and I like continue to do this every once in a while. And I'm totally sold. I'm like, yep, these are, I understand in theory why super intelligence could pose a huge risk and why this would be extremely disruptive and why we're not really prepared and why there's no clear set of guardrails. But when it comes to maybe a more sort of granular thing of timelines or like really meaningfully, I don't know, assessing arguments, like I don't spend a lot of time doing that, and I don't feel super equipped to do that. I think I get a little more of the emotional destabilization feeling that you've talked about. Like even the AGI by 2027 or whatever this like report was.
The scenario, yeah.
Yeah, the scenario. Yeah. So like even this I have not really gone through rigorously by any means. I've skimmed it. And there's this sort of thing where as I'm skimming, I'm like following. Yeah, there's this issue with AI safety where I constantly feel like I'm in a state of following. So I can like follow arguments and then I can follow the counter arguments. But I don't feel like I am personally like generating from a place of deep thought some sort of, argument or counter argument. And I don't like love that feeling, but I've kind of made peace with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then especially like for me right now, because I work in the meta space, because I right now work on EA Global. I just kind of do that. Like I don't necessarily feel I feel some sort of thing of, well, I can just support people who are working on this like broad cluster of things that I think are really important. And that feels like good enough to me right now. Yeah, I'm really curious like where you're sitting with that right now. If you have your own timelines, am I allowed to ask that? Is that like a
Yeah, I kind of don't. Yeah, I totally resonate with the kind of like, you can follow the arguments, you can follow the counter arguments, but you like haven't quite got to the point where you're generating your own arguments. I think I'm basically in the same place. But I think that's like sufficient, because a lot of the time, I don't know, people will challenge you to make the case yourself. And I feel like, well, for one thing, like a lot of the very basic arguments for like why we should be worried about AI are quite simple, right? It's okay, we're going to build this super intelligent system and we don't really have any reliable way of making it care what we want or like about us at all. And, maybe this will happen soon. That's like pretty like compelling already, I think. And I don't really know why, I don't know, people who are more skeptical sort of like challenge the concerned people to have way more sophisticated arguments than that. I don't really know why we need them. That's one thing. And then another thing is, I think in order to be concerned, you don't have to be totally convinced one way or the other. You can just kind of observe that there is this lack of consensus among, experts or people who have been thinking about this a lot longer than you. And that's, again, kind of enough. If you were seeing a bunch of doctors and they couldn't agree what the prognosis was for some condition that you had, right? you would still be worried,
No.
even if they weren't like unanimous. So that's kind of what I think about that. But I have been trying recently to refine my worldview a bit more. And I think like things I have opinions on are more, what should we do about this problem? But I don't think I have a ton of opinions on, how soon will we get AGI, or what is the likelihood that if we got AGI tomorrow it will go badly. I don't have like really strong views on that. Like if somebody was like, what's your P doom? I'd be like, oh, I don't know, it's 50%. Because that just feels like a reasonable synthesis of all the other people's P dooms that I've accumulated. And then on timelines, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think people are super overconfident about this stuff. I am starting to get worried about this kind of crying wolf effect, because I think a lot of people are seeming to cluster around this like 2027, 2028 mark. And I feel like if we get to 2029 and nothing crazy has happened, we are going to lose a bit of credibility as a community, just because of the number of people who have been throwing out those years as their like AGI year or whatever. So I think I don't have strong opinions on timelines, and I kind of wish people would put a little bit less energy into trying to forecast timelines, because I think like the actions that we take maybe are the same whether we think AGI is coming in 3 or 5 years, right? Or even 3 or 10 years. And also, yeah, I'm just worried about, us losing credibility if we turn out to be wrong about like super short timelines. So yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion on that. So, maybe not a very useful answer. But yeah.
No, I think it can be kind of nice to just talk about this, like having this uncertainty. And I also used to like talk about this kind of thing in an extremely bashful way. Like I'd be like, God, I'm so embarrassed that I don't have this incredibly intelligent answer. And then one day I was just like, I'm not embarrassed. I literally think this is fine. I'm just like, this is the situation I'm in. And yeah, kind of to the point on, any specific time and then expecting something to happen by that time and like credibility. Yeah, I think there's, yeah, what am I trying to say here? There's something of trying to seem very, I don't think this is what people are doing by any means, but I think there's just this thing where you can get really engaged with the arguments. And I think this is like very productive, probably within a technical sphere, like for people who really like rigorous technical exploration and whatnot. But yeah, I think it's like kind of something you touched on is you can lose sight of how compelling and strong the actual very base arguments are.
Yeah.
And I'm like the first person to say this, like people point this out all the time, but yeah, like you can just kind of keep hammering home the like very basic argument of look at how fast AI is progressing, look how much we already don't know. Imagine it was like super smart. Wouldn't that be really scary? And this is just like a helpful on its, yeah, you don't always have to keep kind of escalating to be like further and further, like more and more rigorous or technical to get people to listen, I think. I don't know. I mean, I guess you need both, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know. Well, maybe one of my spicier opinions is that I think probably historically in this community there's been a bit of gatekeepiness and a bit of like people feeling like, I don't know, it feels good to think that you're a member of an intellectual elite that has foreseen some problem, years before the rest of the world or something. And I can imagine it doesn't really feel great to give that up. If a bunch of other people suddenly start jumping on your bandwagon, you're a bit like, oh, well, this is like my thing. And, I just think for that reason, there just haven't been, up until very recently, like I've seen a lot more of this happening in the last couple of years since I've been involved, but just like very kind of like far-reaching efforts to engage the general public. Just like that just wasn't happening. And even, I don't know, like I guess my understanding from talking to other people who've been involved for longer than me is that people also weren't really trying to engage policymakers very much until kind of recently, due to this fear that governments are incompetent and they'll just screw it up and we should play the inside game and handle it, among the like technical people who already care about this, which I just think is bizarre. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think like we have to be really careful to not underestimate other people's capacity to understand this stuff. Whenever I've tried to explain it to people in my life, they've all understood it. Like they don't necessarily find it that like emotionally salient necessarily. I don't really know why. So people are often just like, oh yeah, these arguments make sense, but I don't really have the emotional bandwidth to worry about this, which is maybe fair. But it's not, yeah, I don't think people have a hard time wrapping their minds around it at all. So yeah, I agree with all of that. I'm trying to think where to go next. I've just rambled and now I'm trying to think.
Oh, that was super interesting. I actually had a question, if you don't mind me
Yeah,
just
sure.
But I was wondering if you could speak more about your experience, if you don't mind, with the community, because you've touched on there is like a very specific culture. And like you mentioned that you found some aspects of it, like you totally vibed with it. And then there are these undertones of gatekeeping that can come up. But I actually would just love to hear what your like overall impression and experience has kind of been.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like actually interpersonally, just like very good. I really like the AI safety community in general. And yeah, the last couple of months I've been working out of the Lisa offices in London and just like generally having a really good time. It's just like really fun to be around people who care about the same stuff as you. It's like very energizing. I think there's just like a certain way of thinking and speaking that I just sort of vibe with, which I don't really get anywhere else. So yeah, when I've met people in person, I've like really enjoyed hanging out with everyone that I've met. I think when I was talking before about the gatekeepy contingent, I think that's mostly been online. Because I'm obviously crazy, I have one of those like anonymous feedback forms. Sometimes people are a little not nice in there, which is kind of on me because I could just not have one of those. But sometimes it's good to get feedback. I think, I mean, now less so because I've tried to dial back how candid I am on Twitter, like a little bit. But maybe a year ago when I was just like more relaxed about what I would post and I would just kind of say things without thinking them through very much. Sometimes I would attract like some hostility from the like accelerationist faction, and some of those people are just trolls, and some of them really hate women.
Yeah. Oh yes, they do.
Just like never ever, fortunately, basically never experienced that in my life before, and then to like suddenly start experiencing actual sexism was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I didn't think we still did this. So that was not great. I don't know if you have any takes on this. I don't know if this is too spicy. We would have to talk about this if you want, but like, how do you feel about like this community and the gender disparity? Like, obviously it's massive. Like, my Twitter engagement is 90% male, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's just that, like, for me, very unfamiliar. Like, I went to girls' school and then I did an English literature degree, and I've always been around loads of women. And to be in a male-dominated environment is really unusual for me. So, yeah, what has your experience been like here?
Yeah, I'm in a really similar boat where I guess much of my life, I suppose it was like fairly balanced. And then my undergraduate program was like this really small research-based program. It was like 60 students, and it was like women dominated for whatever reason. It just was, I don't know. So yeah, this was, I guess, truly like my first proper like male dominated environment. Even like when I would do summer research and stuff, I was just never in male dominated labs. Or I guess I was like in my fourth year I technically was, but I only ever really talked to my supervisor, and it was like a small lab anyway. So sorry, that was very rambly, but yes, this is my first time as well. Yeah, what do I think? I mean, I'm so happy to hear that your in-person experience was so lovely. I think this has 1,000% been like my experience as well. Like, I've met just like the most incredible people. I'm like obsessed with the events team at CEA. Like, I could like literally get emotional, but yeah, I just like, yeah, I don't know. They've just like really built me up, and they've always just been like, you're so smart, queen, you're so brilliant, and just been really supportive. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, in ways that I think are like actually quite exceptional. So yeah, that's been really beautiful. I've definitely had also weird experiences, you know. Yeah, definitely. Yes, like some stuff that's either just like legitimate sexual harassment or like just like men saying weird stuff. But I think online it's just sometimes the worst. Yeah. I think the thing that frustrates me so much is just like being so misunderstood all the time, and like feeling like people don't realize that they are bringing like a very subjective perspective, and they just like often treat it as so obvious. And this really gets me. Like, so I remember so vividly, there's this one time where you tweeted something about, you were like, AI generating images of influencers could just be like so bad for further kind of flooding the media with like unrealistic body images, basically. And I remember, to me, I was immediately just like, oh my God, totally. Like, Instagram ruined my adolescence. Like, I had a major eating disorder. It was like terrible. Like, I hated myself. Like, right. I just was immediately like, yep. And so many of my friends like understand this experience. And then I just, there were so many comments where like, no, like, I think men will still want real women. And I was like,
yeah,
you're all so confused. Like, and it's like, this is not like a moral, like, atrocity. Like, it's fine, I get it, whatever. But it's just when this keeps happening, at a point you're just like, you just don't, there's just like profound feeling of like, I am misunderstood when I talk about like things that have a gender element or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, oh my God, I totally forgot about that tweet.
Sorry to remind you.
Yeah, people will be like, I literally don't understand why you'd be concerned about it. Oh yeah, I think it was because they thought that I meant that like men would get unrealistic expectations for women, and I meant that we would get unrealistic expectations for ourselves, which like in fact can be totally separate to what men think about us. Incredibly, who knew that maybe women would care about their bodies like absent wanting attention from men or whatever, like crazy.
No, literally, God forbid. Amanda,
God forbid. Like, yeah, literally, that's the only thing that matters. Oh man, yeah, no, that's so true. Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I had one experience where I had a take. To be fair, in retrospect, the take was kind of bad. I can't even remember what it was now, but I said something kind of uninformed and like a bit stupid.
Sure.
And it got quote tweeted by this quite prominent like accelerationist account, and he said something along the lines of, this is why we didn't used to allow women in pubs and clubs, as in that's where men used to go to talk about high-minded ideas, and now women are coming in and saying dumb stuff, and if only we had a space where we could go to talk about smart stuff where they wouldn't come in and say dumb stuff. And the thing that frustrated me about this tweet, like his quote tweet of my tweet got so much attention and like a ton of likes and a ton of people ostensibly agreeing with him, and I was like, wow, that's crazy that someone can say something so like obviously misogynistic and people actually rally behind it. That's crazy.
It's soul crushing. I feel like people can underestimate how like deeply soul crushing it is, and then often there's this response that's, oh well, forget about him, he's just a freak. And you're like, this has 70 likes, or what? You're just
it had like 100.
Like, hundreds.
I think it had like maybe 200 or something. I think it got more likes than my original thing.
Right. Which is so.
And I was like, it's
Sorry,
so annoying. I was like, look, I know my take was bad, but like sometimes people say stupid things. Men say stupid things too. Let a girl say stupid things. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think here is where I like, and I literally do this too. So this is, I hear you, but I'm like, yeah, this is where I get, there actually is no context. Like, at no point do you even have to qualify what your original tweet is. It quite literally makes no difference, because there's no context in which it's appropriate to suddenly be misogynistic. Like, you could have said the dumbest like thing that anyone has quite literally ever said, and like, it just, what does it matter? Like, how is he suddenly allowed to be like, this is why we don't let women in? That's a crazy response to literally any tweet. Like, it's just, I think it like makes me sad too, because I fall into this trap where I have to like, I feel like I have to justify like why it's bad, or I have to show some sort of humility. Like, and I know I'm not like the smartest girl in the world. It's just like, who gives a shit? So I do find this whole thing gets exhausting. And then to your point of, it's like this 1950s sexism where you're like, what? I thought that was outlawed or something.
Like, it's like not even like the subtle kind. It's like the blatant kind. I'm like, wow, you guys are so bold that you would do that. That's crazy.
You're not even gaslighting me.
Like, Another one I got was, oh my God, I posted like a screenshot of the stats of my Twitter engagement, which like I was saying is like 88% men, like 2% other, and 10% women, or something crazy like that. And I posted this and I was like, oh, I think we need more women in AI safety or something. And this guy responded, pointing out, that the thing about how if you look at IQ distribution, it's like at the very end of the curve, like the very top, IQs are disproportionately male. But then in the middle, it's like women are kind of higher on average. And I don't know, it's kind of iffy. And he was like, look, if you really cared about AI safety, you wouldn't want more women in AI safety, because that would actually make it less likely that we solve alignment because of the like IQ disparity at the top end of the bell curve. And I could tell this person was like so sincere and actually thought this was a good point.
Yeah. Like,
and he was like, don't promote like more women getting into this, because then we're all more likely to die. And I was like, that's crazy. That's a crazy take.
That's
I don't even see that.
Yeah,
literally crazy. I'm not even going to sit here and argue with you and try to explain how wrong that is, because that's unhinged.
Yeah.
People really believe this stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. It's you just don't get it. We have to keep spaces open for the high IQ genius men. And if women take those spaces, it's over. We're all dead. Like, we have to find, it's just like, when someone has this perspective, it's just, okay, I don't even want to.
There's no deprogramming a person like that.
Yeah.
I don't even really want to live in the world where we've thought like you and your high IQ male homies have like solved alignment. I thought that world's gonna suck anyways.
I say this all the time. Yeah, I have this thing where I'm just like, what about the culture? What about, like, I'm like, where are the women? Like, I don't even, like, outside of this even frame, I'm just like, whatever vibe y'all are bringing, I just can't live in that world. It's just not going to work for me.
That's so true.
Yeah. I mean, I am so sorry that you, like, have had to deal with so much of that. And yeah, it just sucks. But I, like, for whatever it's worth, I have so deeply appreciated ever since you hit the scene. Like, you're just such a good communicator and like smart. And it's just, it's just nice. Really, genuinely.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. That's so sweet. I mean, like, same to you. Like, there are like certain accounts that I like clocked immediately while I was in my like lurking phase, and yours was definitely one of them. Like, people who I was like, I like this person.
Nice.
And again, like I said, your pinned tweet, just exceptional. I could never post like that.
Thank you. No, I think that's not true. But also, that was literally 2022. I only realized that the other day. I was like, I've literally not said something funnier than this. I haven't said something funnier since 2022. This really shook me. I don't know what the takeaway from that is. I guess it's just sometimes you peak. Or maybe it was like the FX trauma. It just did something to me. And now it's just, I'll never be that funny again.
I mean, I think my most like tweet was a picture of a like conductor, like a musical conductor that I just cut in half and captioned semiconductor. And then it got 5,000 likes. And I was so annoyed because I was like, I'm here trying to bring nuanced takes, trying to raise awareness about AI safety, like trying to be smart. And people just want stupid puns. That's what the people want. I would never have a post go viral like that again, probably.
It's really funny. I totally remember that post too. Actually, it's just really good. But yeah, that is what the people want.
That is what they want. Yeah. Yeah. What should we talk about next? Yeah, I don't know if this is like too dark and like sad to talk about, but do you have takes on like worrying that AI doom might actually happen, and like the emotional experience of that, especially if I don't know whether you have people in your life who don't buy into this stuff or know about it, and then do you have this experience of living in a sort of different reality to other people, or if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I know you've talked about this. I think having a lot of people in your life who don't necessarily track this kind of thing, then like you're in a very different reality. I feel like basically my entire social environment is just bought into EA and AI safety. So I personally don't find this stressful because I have found people who just have other things in their life and talk about other things, and like this is like not the core part of the like friendship or something. But at least I guess the emotional experience I've had was actually that for a while I was just emotionally kind of insulated from the actual fear of AI. And I got all the arguments and I was like, yes, I'm into this. And everyone I know is like a ton of people that I know are into this and we're working on it, but I don't really sit with it and I don't emotionally feel that scared. And it was literally only basically when Trump went crazy, if you will, or just, I don't know, when everything started getting really like terrible and upsetting in the US, and like a lot of lives were being like horribly affected. And yeah, I don't know, for some reason, something about this pierced through whatever like veil of ignorance I managed to build around myself, like emotionally. And I just started to feel like, holy shit, like I think AI is real and I'm actually really scared. Yeah, so luckily I don't have to deal with the sense of cognitive dissonance of I'm really petrified of this thing and no one else is. But I don't really like, as everyone has already talked about a lot, I don't like feeling the fear. It's really scary and it makes me sad and it just makes me want to call my girlfriend or something. It just makes me sad. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I do think like that seems like of the emotional responses you could have or like impulses you could have is like a very healthy one, right? Like to just be like, oh my god, this is horrible. I really want to talk to the people I care about. That's
Yeah.
actually pretty well adjusted.
Dude, I'm curious about like I mean, I think you maybe have a bit of a different emotional experience having gotten into this kind of more recently and a bit on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think like originally it was stemming from, like I was saying, this dissonance between, I wrote a blog on this, which people might have seen, where I was talking about how if you are socially surrounded by people who don't really pay attention to AI, and then by some other people that do, then you kind of have two different like worlds that you're living in, a sort of like fast world and a slow world is like what I called it in this blog post. And it's just very sort of weird to snap in and out of those mindsets so kind of regularly. Like I feel like I can go back and forth between them like multiple times in a single day, it's kind of weird. So I think that's just quite, I think I used to find that kind of distressing, especially if, and like sort of guilt inducing, because if people would talk about, I want to like talking about having kids or talking about what their career plans for the next 10 years or just like all this stuff, which all totally might still happen. Like I could be totally wrong about all of this or timelines could be super long or whatever. But like believing internally that like maybe none of that was going to happen and not really knowing whether to say that, not really knowing whether to be honest, that I like kind of my worldview kind of contradicts that. I think like the actual play is to just not be that person and to just go with it, because otherwise nobody will invite you to their party. But and I don't want people to start uninviting me from the pub, like
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just feels like you have to be kind of inauthentic around people, which is like a little bit unpleasant. Yeah. I felt sorry for you that it sounds like you literally in the last couple of months have suddenly started to emotionally internalize this, which is kind of rough.
Literally. I don't know. Yeah, that is what happened.
Was that your tweet where you were like the guy who's in the sea with the wine? You were like, bro, I think AI risk is like literally real.
Yeah. Yeah, literally.
I saw that. I didn't realize this is actually like an emotional watershed moment for you. I was just like, oh, that's funny.
Oh no, it is funny. Don't worry. I was laughing. But no, yeah, it is. Well, basically, I was the person that you were essentially describing, where I was just like, oh, I'm gonna have a wraparound porch and raise beautiful children who are like obsessed with me because I'm gonna be like such a good mom, and it's just gonna be like so sick. And I'm just like working on AI safety, which I believe in, but I'm just also gonna have this other thing. And then only recently was I like, what it doesn't happen, and I was so sad. Yeah, but then anyway, and then one thing that helped was basically it became an exercise of like empathy essentially and a bit of a privilege check, because I was kind of like had this realization of wow, they're just people who have never really even been able to hope for the future. They've just been in such dire circumstances that these kinds of like beautiful futures that I would like everyone to be able to have has just like, ever felt like in reach to some people. And I was okay, like this is like a grief that people have carried, and I will learn how to carry this, and that is okay.
I think it's actually, yeah, if you take like a long view of history as well, like people generally, I don't know, like we're actually in a very rare position to have lived like with some level of certainty of long lifespan, right? I don't know, like people used to not
Yeah.
live very long. And then
Yes. Yeah.
throughout the whole of the 20th century, people thought that the world was going to get nuked any second. And it's
Yeah.
pretty unusual for people to actually live in the slow world, right? I think. And I quite liked Ezra Klein did a Q&A a couple of years ago where somebody asked him, you know how people will say, oh, you shouldn't have children if you really believe in climate change. They'll kind of almost make this moral argument that it's like bad to bring children into this world if you think that it's going to be on fire or underwater in 20 years or whatever. And he made this argument that, well, you know, people in the Middle Ages still had children even though infant mortality rates were pretty high, right? And like if
Yeah.
people had always, you know, not carried on living or even carried on bringing new life into the world because they weren't certain that, you know, their children were going to have like really long happy lives or whatever, you know, we would have just died out, right? And I don't really know, like I think you can agree or disagree with that argument. I find that actually kind of comforting because it's actually, yeah, I think it's useful, yeah, helpful to remember that this is kind of the rule and not the exception or something. Maybe that's depressing. I don't know.
No, that was so well put. That was literally exactly the kind of thing that I was trying to get at. And that, yeah, I thought was super well put. I also just, yeah, find it helpful. Yeah, and even to just remember, yeah, the point of Ezra's argument is just that this is like actually a very complicated philosophical question that like actually people have contended with for a very long time. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like certainly not clear cut. Yeah. Aw.
Yes, headphones. My headphone just died, and now I'm
Oh
like,
no.
I think if I take them out,
I can hear you totally fine.
Okay, now I'm doing it just on my laptop speaker, which might make the sound quality like a bit worse, but I think it will still be fine. I'm literally the worst podcaster ever.
Oh, it's the chill vibe. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you wanna touch on?
Yeah, good question. I have just been really enjoying this. So first, thank you. But yeah, I feel like we're like at a really good place to wrap up if you agree. And I was wondering if there was like a nice final, what is like a nice note to end on?
We could try and end on something optimistic.
Yeah, like yeah, maybe a future facing thing. What are you? Good. Would you want to say more about like your future plans, like what you're up to, what you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm gonna start at AC hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little complicated because I live in Sheffield right now and I am like trying to avoid moving to London. But like
Oh, interesting.
all of the AI safety stuff is in London, and I feel like eventually my career path is gonna bring me there against my will, and then I will have to move there. But I just love it here so much. I don't want to leave.
Oh, yeah, fair.
But we'll see. I might get a kitten.
Oh my
but
God.
that will depend on whether our landlord lets us have one or not. But if I do get a kitten, everybody on Twitter will know because I'll post a picture of it.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah, that's kind of it. I don't really know what I'm going to be doing. Yeah, how about you?
Yeah, good question. I literally also don't know what I'm gonna be doing. I actually don't even know why I asked that. I literally, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably just gonna like keep doing what I'm doing and then thinking about information as it is presented to me, and then maybe I will change what I'm doing based on that information.
So real.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice. I mean, I guess you're busy preparing for EAG London right now, I assume.
Yes, yeah, I am. Well, okay, I'm not that busy. Basically, I had to go on like medical leave for a small amount of time, like 4 weeks, and then I'm doing like a phased return to work. So I'm not that busy. They've been really like shielding me. Like the team has been great. So, but yes, other people are busy working on EAG London, and maybe I'll see people there. Oh my god, I feel like I should plug it. When is it? I forget what it is. It's like June.
Beginning of June. Yeah.
Oh god. Okay, yeah, it's June 6th to 8th. The best event in the world objectively. A lot of people say this. It's true. And
Really
the
good.
application deadline is May 18th. And you should definitely go to EA Global. Everyone should go to that.
Yes. I will link that in the description. It's very good. So many snacks.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
that's like a selling point, but there are like a surprising amount of free snacks. I feel like I was really surprised by this when I went. I was like, I've never seen this many like cookies and protein bars in my life. But yeah.
Nice. I'm so glad.
Dude, so I love Trek bars. Okay, I'm getting distracted now. Okay, amazing. And yeah, thank you so much for this. This was very chill and very fun.
Thank you. I had a great time. Yeah, thank you for talking. And it was, super nice.
Yeah, anytime. And I will link your Twitter and your Substack and anywhere else that people can find you that I should link to.
Thank you. No, that's everything. I mean, I made you like do this with me because I was like, trying to see what it felt like to podcast. But yeah, who knows if that'll ever happen. But yeah, thanks for doing it with me.
I mean, you should totally just start a podcast.
Okay, stay tuned. No, thank you.
Yeah, well, hopefully it was like a positive update in favor of podcasting.
Yeah, I had a great, if it's just Gib Gabbin, sign me up.
It's a yap.
Yeah, it's a yap session.
Yeah, basically. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks.